This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. It's episode 234 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. And I hope you guys are all safe in this weather, this blizzard that's right in front of me outside the window. If you got to go out, please be safe out there. If not, try to stay in. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86 and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify if you prefer to listen. But if you want to be a part of the chat, you want to be a part of the conversation, like over 73 people starting off are right now, you're doing that right here on YouTube. And you can help me out with the super chat and super thanks, super stickers. That helps out on YouTube. So appreciate all of you for tuning in. We talked briefly during the live stream last as we were breaking down the Freddy Peralta trade as it was happening. So today we're going to talk about the MLB impact, the minor league impact. I have Ernest Dove coming on at 10:20, but joining me right now to start everything off is really the guy who kind of broke the story of this trade possibly going down. It was getting close. That was Pat Ragazzo, my good friend. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm great, Anthony. Thanks so much for having me back on. Always a pleasure.
It's so great to have you on. And, let's get deep into this trade here. The Mets received Freddy Peralta as well as Tobias Myers as a part of the trade. Brewers got Brandon Sproat, Jet Williams, the Mets' top prospect number 3 and number 5, respectively. Peralta in 2025 was 17-6 with a 2.70 ERA, had 204 strikeouts in 176 and 2/3 innings pitched, made 33 starts. Myers, who was kind of the throw-in of the trade, but a nice little addition, 1-2, 3.55 ERA, had 38 strikeouts in 50 and 2/3 innings pitched, but made only 6 starts. We saw Sproat briefly towards the end of the year. He went 0-2, 4.79 ERA in 4 starts, had 17 strikeouts in 20 and 2/3 innings pitched. But for Syracuse, he was 8-6, 4.24 ERA. Kind of up and down season last year. And then Williams, 2025 spent in Binghamton and Syracuse. Pat, you were right on this trade from the start. You had Jet in this trade as the talks were really getting serious here. What were your thoughts on the trade after completion? What grade do you give both sides?
Well, my thoughts are the Mets really are trying to win this year. I mean, this was a win now move, giving up your number 3 prospect and your number 5 prospect for a rental starter who David Stearns is very familiar with. And Tobias Myers, who has 4 years of control, who's shown flashes. And he even showed flashes in Game 3 of the NL wild card in 2024 against the Mets. So this is a guy who's had success as a starter. He's had success as a reliever. I believe he has a 1.64 career ERA as a relief pitcher. The Mets need bullpen help, so that's probably where he's going to fit in this year, most likely, as long as most things go according to plan. And then my grade that I would give the trade, I would give it a solid A-. I mean, the only reason that I'm not giving it an A+ for both sides is that for the Mets at least, they're taking a chance here with a rental, and they could still extend Freddy Peralta. And through my reporting, I've revealed that Freddy Peralta is open to an extension, but on the Mets side, they want to just get him acclimated and comfortable, and that's something that they'll probably talk about in March, which is when those talks typically go down. So I would say A- for the Mets, and I would say A+ for the Brewers, because they did get the Mets number 3 and number 5 prospect. I mean, Jet Williams has a very high ceiling, speed, defense. He projects better as a infielder, middle infielder, as opposed to the outfield, which the infield had become very crowded for the Mets. And then Brandon Sproat has ace potential. He showed flashes as well through his minor league career, and he did pretty well down the stretch for the Mets as well. He was their second best young starter behind Nolan McLean. So, I would say A- for the Mets and A+ for the Brewers.
Yeah, his rough start, Brandon Sproat's rough start to last season, he really picked it up midway. And I think that's the reason why I guess they jumped Tong over him when they were bringing up these guys. When they brought McLean, they brought Tong up. And Sproat kind of was the last one of the threesome that came up. And you said in your article, and make sure you check out Pat on he's the publisher for Mets on SI, part of Sports Illustrated. Make sure you check that out. I will have the links for all of that in the description of this podcast, as well as on the audio version as well. You said in your article the Mets will either have to trade a starter, go with a 6-man rotation, or move an arm to the bullpen.
Yeah.
Which one of these scenarios do you think is the most likely now that they have Freddy Peralta in the fold?
That's a great question. I think that they're going to go with what they have. I mean, David Stearns still could surprise us and pull off another trade and maybe ship a starter out, but it sounds like they're going to hold on to Kodai Senga. David Peterson is entering the final year of his contract. I guess it would be him who they traded, but then they don't have a lefty in their rotation. Yeah. So I don't know. I could see them going into camp with all 7 of these starters, or all 6 of these starters, I should say. And then they have great young depth with Jonah Tong and with Christian Scott coming back as well. Yeah. So I see them going in and having a battle in camp, and the loser, they either go to the 6-man rotation to appease Senga and try and keep him healthy, which is certainly possible, or they move one of those guys to the bullpen. But again, we could still be surprised. I think the Mets are done making major moves, but we could be a little bit surprised if they pull off another trade.
I mean, when healthy, Senga is 2-3 starter. I mean, he's got the potential. He's always had the potential to be an ace type starter. We've seen it, but he just can't stay healthy, and there's a lot that has to be required in him to get in the flow of things for pitching. I assume if they go to this bullpen route, which they need a long man, that obviously Peterson, Manaea, Holmes. I guess you could throw Tobias Myers in there now. Would be like the likely candidates. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think Myers is going to start out in the bullpen, and Peterson had success in the bullpen down the stretch of 2024 and in the postseason in 2024. So that's definitely an option. But like I said, then you don't have a left-hander in your rotation, so that could be an issue. So I think they want to keep Manaea healthy. I don't think moving him to the bullpen is the smartest way to do that. So I think he probably sticks in the rotation, and they're counting on him having a bounce back. And same goes for Senga, that they're counting on Senga bouncing back this year as well and staying healthy. And when Senga doesn't have these little injury, these lower body injuries, he pitches like an ace. So they're hoping to be able to keep him healthy this year. And if he does get off track, to be able to figure it out now, having gone through it 2 separate times in the past 2 years, to be able to get him back on track with his performance if he does suffer, an injury.
You mentioned it with Freddy Peralta and the extension. The most important question now lies there with Peralta. Will he come to terms on an extension this offseason? Because a lot of Met fans are a little weary about the way that David Stearns handles pitchers and contracts. Is this something that's more realistic because of the fact that they have worked together, and Freddy Peralta initially, I think, was traded to the Brewers in helps because of David Stearns in Milwaukee?
Yeah, this is a player who David Stearns traded for now twice in his career. He traded for him when he was with the Mariners back in, I believe it was 2019, and then traded for him with the Mets, obviously, just now. So, I think that there's a higher chance that they'll dish out a long-term deal to him. Even a 5-year deal, 6-year deal is fair, considering he's 29, turning 30 this year. I think that that's fair. And from my understanding, Freddy Peralta, I'll drop a little nugget on you. Freddy Peralta wanted to go to a team who had the money, to the bandwidth at least, to extend him. So he's very, very open to signing an extension.
And his situation is totally different from trading for a Turek Skubal, because obviously Skubal's under Boris. They're going to want to hit free agency. At the very least, you get Freddy Peralta. You have the opportunity to get this contract extension done before he hits free agency.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The Mets would have had to trade their top 5 prospects, not just 2 of their top 5. Their top 5 prospects, most likely, to land Turek Skubal, who was not signing an extension. He's a Boris client. He's a Boris client's go to free agency, as we all know.
I'm kind of glad that they got this deal done, because to me, Freddy Peralta is better than Mackenzie Gore, and I feel like the Rangers got shafted by having to give 5 prospects for Mackenzie Gore. I'm not saying Mackenzie Gore is not good, but I think Freddy Peralta is a little bit better than him.
David Peterson had an abysmal second half last season, and Mackenzie Gore's second half was worse. I believe Peterson had a 6.34 ERA in the second half or something around there, maybe 6.04. And Mackenzie Gore had a 6.75 ERA in the second half of the season. So they had like identical ERAs in the low threes in the first half, and they both had 6 to high 6 in the second half. So and they're both left-handers too. So that have shown flashes. So I don't understand the logic behind the Rangers giving up 5 prospects for Mackenzie Gore. The Mets only had to give up 2 of their top 5, but I guess the value was higher on Sproat and Jet Williams, in that trade, it seems.
Luis Robert Jr. trade I want to get into real quick with you. They acquired him for Luis Angel Acuna as well as prospect Truman Pauly. With Robert Jr. coming off a hot start and now moving to this kind of a more dynamic lineup than what Chicago has out there, do you think we kind of get a little bit of the return of what we saw from him in 2023 when he was an all-star and, he hit over 30 home runs? I mean, the talent is there.
I think his motivation is going to be at an all-time high now that he's with a potential contender. The White Sox have been in the basement of the American League for years now, and the year where I believe they weren't that bad in 2023. I might be wrong. But they had a couple good years where, Robert was producing, and then he had his breakout year in 2023, and then they've been terrible the last 2 years, and he's been injured. So he had a very good second half. In the very least, he brings elite defense and speed on the base paths. And that's really what the Mets are looking for. I mean, they got 0 offensive production from the center field position last season. So anything Robert gives them really is an upgrade offensively. And he does have that speed and that defense, in the field and on the base path. So, I think he has a good chance of bouncing back this year at the plate.
Where would you put him in the lineup? Where do you see best fit for Robert Jr. in this lineup? Is it more middle, 4, 5, 6? Or I asked this to a lot of people on X just to get their thoughts, and they're more of 7, 8 around that area.
Yeah, I would say 7 through 9 is probably good for him. Having speed at the bottom of the order can be valuable too. Second, third time through. I mean, it's like having another leadoff hitter essentially. So I could see the Mets batting him, 7 through 9. I believe in one of my projected lineups, I had Francisco Alvarez batting 9th just to kind of balance it out and have a righty after a lefty. I think I had Beatty batting 8th. But I think Robert Jr., maybe we could flip-flop him and Alvarez and have Robert Jr. 9th just to give speed at the bottom of the order would make sense.
With a couple of players out of position in Jorge Polanco and Bo Bichette, you're really not getting that from Luis Robert Jr. I mean, he's an elite center fielder. He helps now Carson Bench, who doesn't have to man center field. If he does break with the team at camp, he could play left field along with Tyrone Taylor helping out. So the outfield defense has gotten a whole lot better now that you have Robert Jr. in center field and Tyrone Taylor in left. A lot of emphasis now on that run prevention has come through here.
Yeah, and I had heard that they were more comfortable playing Carson Bench in a corner spot as opposed to center field. They did say he was going to have a chance to win the center field job and compete with Tyrone Taylor, but all along the Mets were trying to acquire a center fielder. Robert was a name of interest, really dating back to the trade deadline, and Benj really projects in the long term better in a corner outfield spot. So that's what they wanted to do, and I think they did improve run prevention at least in the outfield. With just by getting Robert Jr., who's a Gold Glove caliber center fielder. So I think that's really the idea they had, at least behind their outfield configuration. And in the infield, you have Bichette, who the reaction times are a lot quicker at third base, but they think he'll be able to take to the position given he's a natural shortstop and really playing on a bad leg. He took to second base very well in the postseason and in the World Series, which was very surprising. And he's athletic, and so is Polanco. Polanco used to play shortstop. He's second baseman, third baseman. So I think that these guys are going to be counted. Their athleticism is really going to be tested, but it's going to be counted on this year. And the Mets believe that both of those players can make the transitions to their new positions.
The up the middle looks solid with Simeon at second, Lindor at short, now Robert Jr. out there in center field. And I do like what you mentioned earlier about the versatility of these guys, of Polanco, Bichette. It's not like back in the day where like Lindor needs a day off and, oh, we're just going to plug this backup shortstop in. These guys can rotate around, play multiple positions, and I think that's a huge positive to keep these guys healthy and fresh as the season goes on. Before I let you go, one last question. Are the Mets done making moves, or do you think that they have something left in the tank? If so, what is your best bet on kind of what they do here?
I think, again, like I said, I think they're done making major moves, but if there are going to be any moves to be made, it's going to be in the bullpen, whether that's through free agency or via trade. And yeah, they could surprise us and add another starter too. You can never have too much starting pitching, as they learned last year, up close and personal. And it could be a trade for a starter as well if we do see more moves.
Pat Ragazzo, you can follow him on Mets on SI. He runs that whole site out there. Check it out, part of Sports Illustrated. Any other stories you got coming up that you want to kind of preview or anything like that?
Just keep following along with my free agency stuff and my trade rumors and everything else. And pretty soon we'll be in spring training here in just in a couple of short weeks.
Pat, I always appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on, my friend.
Yeah, of course, Anthony. Anytime. Always happy to chop it up with you. So thanks for having me.
All righty. That was Pat Ragazzo. Make sure you're following him. I'm going to put all this information in the description of this podcast for you to check out. Shout out to everyone. We've got over 678 people in this room right now. I'll try to get to as many chat and comments as I can. Jeff Cohen in here, Shea Parking Lot, Armand, Duran Rivera in here. It's a lot to get to. Corey Holzer in the chat. Appreciate you as well. Top Bunk Sports, my good friend, in the chat here. And I wanted to get to some comments here. Obviously, Minnesota Fats saying, please stay safe. Home, New York. It's terrible outside. Yeah, this storm is a brewing. It is coming down here in New York City and the whole tri-state area. Mainly Mets on YouTube said, that trade for Peralta was great. I love Jet Williams, but he had no place on the roster for years to come. Sproat has never been an ace or number 2 in the minors. He would be a solid starter, but a 3. I just think that there are other pitchers in the system. Obviously, Jonah Tong kind of leapfrogged him, Nolan McLean, and when we get Ernest Dove in here in just a few seconds, there's a couple of pitchers that are in the minors that may be better than what Brandon Sproat is. Mainly Mets YouTube also said Peralta has been open to an extension, much better rental than Skubal. Stearns isn't doing this trade if Cohen didn't sign off on a trade and extend. I'm thinking he gets 5 years, 35 per mil. I think that they do get an extension done. I think the fact that he was open to the extension and that also he doesn't work with Scott Boras, that this makes this a little bit easier. We got to be patient, see how long it takes. It might take through all of spring training, but I do think that they get something done here. Green Machine saying the Mets paid a hefty price in prospect capital for Peralta, but the Mets need to extend him. It was a hefty price, giving up your number 3 and number 5 in when it comes to the top 10 prospects. But just look at what the Rangers had to give up for Mackenzie Gore. That to me is crazy. And I want to know, when we get Ernest on here, I want to know what his like equivalent of those 5 players would have been for Mackenzie Gore, because that's wild to me. That trait is absolutely wild to me. And Ernest is here right now. We're going to bring him on the stage here right now with me. Ernest, my friend, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How are you, man?
Doing very well. It's great to speak to you. I had to get your thoughts on these 2 trades, Freddy Peralta as well as the Luis Robert Jr. trade, because I want the minor league aspect of this. We know what Freddy Peralta is. We kind of know what Tobias Myers is, who is a nice throw-in, as well as Luis Robert Jr. But what the Mets are giving up, how they, I don't want to say recover, but I guess replace Brandon Sproat, who's a top 10, Jet Williams, who's a top 10, Luis Angel Acuna, who's kind of like the Mets super utility guy, how they can, replace these guys on the team. Let me ask you something. Are you good with the return that they got in this Freddy Peralta trade? Obviously, Freddy Peralta is a really good starting pitcher. There's no extension just yet. We'll have to wait and see. But even the Tobias Meyer throw in there, I think that was a nice little addition when you have to give up 2 prospects like you did in Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the keys to it. I mean, obviously, these things are always different. Like even with the Lindor trade, when you get the extra, veteran kind of major leaguer to go along in some kind of package deal, and you have to give to get, right? Even as the prospect hugger. And that's the thing I think about online when people are like, how are you this or that's giving up too much? And then the same exact people are arguing, why are we giving up the farm? Or we really need the guy. The prospects mean nothing. They're only prospect until proven otherwise. So overall, you have to see it's a fair trade for how these things go. Even when we got our 40-year-olds a couple of years ago, we're getting 40-year-olds for top 100 prospects. So to get a full season of an ace on your team, you're going to give up bare minimum top 100 prospect. It seems like the standard MO of trades when you do something like that. So overall, even as a prospect hugger, it was a fair trade. And even in some of my recent videos on the Dove Report, I mentioned some of the options we do have that I can get into on your show. But there are replacements. But again, not always that simple, of course, either way. Right. But there's just a lot of talent right now in the Mets farm system.
You had mentioned, well, first off, before I get to that point, I don't know if you saw the Mackenzie Gore trade and the prospects that went that way there. They gave up 5 for Mackenzie Gore, 5 prospects, 5 for 1 deal. What would be the equivalent for the Mets if they had to do something like that and give up 5 prospects? Because I think Freddy Peralta is better than Mackenzie Gore. Even Pat Ragazzo was talking about the fact that David Peterson's worst second half is still better than what Mackenzie Gore did in the second half last season.
Yeah, I think one of those things that I think a lot of Mets fans, we all fall in love with the biggest names possible. But another thing that teams, organizations fall in love with is stuff. And when you have a guy like Mackenzie Gore, he's had the stuff his whole career. Like you can't get it out of your mind to have a true talent like that. But again, now this is what you're going to have to pay, whether you bulk up 3, 4, 5, or like the Mets did, you got to give up 2 of the top ones you have in your entire organization on a list. But then you get into rankings. I'm trying to figure out how high the Nats are as a farm system as opposed to the Mets. That's always going to be a factor. I know there's jokes online, obviously, with the Mets at first Yankees. The Yankees don't really have they have a bottom 10 farm system. So if they were to get a guy like Gore or Peralta, they would literally have to likely trade the top 2 or 3 listed prospects in their organization to have a shot, because those top 2 or 3, for all we know, for argument purposes, they may be 6, 7, 8 on the Mets rather than 1, 2, 3. I mean, that's how these things work. So yeah. I like the idea of bulking them up too, because again, if you have the prospects to do it, you see what the Mets did, giving up about a half a dozen guys at the last deadline. Mm-hmm. We can argue and debate hindsight, rankings, but you have to either bulk them up or you better give multiple top 100 to get the aces or the potential stud kind of arms and bats in this league.
You mentioned it on a post in December about the prospects you were willing to trade this winter. Brandon Sproat was on there, Nick Morabito, Will Watson, Ryan Clifford, Jet Williams, and Luis Angel Acuna. Now 3 of those guys are gone. So, hey, I mean, you say you're a prospect hugger, but you mentioned some players that you thought could be traded, and they went in that direction. So, kudos to you for being right on top of that.
Yeah, I'm happy to be right and sad to be right, because I must have jinxed it. So I'm sorry, everybody that was fans of them. I could have explanations if you had all day, but I tried to pick out certain prospects in the Mets organization that have versions of similarities of depth within the organization, even at the top. The reason why I kept choosing Brandon Sproat, I have my personal opinions, thoughts, insights, some source information, but I had McClain and Tong over Sproat. So that's kind of the reasoning. And even now in spring, I've been ever since the pitching camp started and ended, a lot of people have seen what I'm talking about with Jack Wenninger. And I've actually had people tell me and think and believe Jack Wenninger could probably be better than Brandon Sproat as a projection long-term. So that's just one option, or one, prospect versus prospect, pound for pound. When you want to break things down, those are some of the things that happen. Then with the Jet Williams, he's not even a full-time second baseman of sorts. And you know what? Neither is A.J. Ewing, who can play center field, possibly can also play second base. As also with what you said with Marcus Semien having up to a 3-year contract, I know a lot of fans are like, whatever, we can have Cohen's money and release guys whenever we want, but 3-year deal. So that's one of the reasons why I was thinking Jet right after the Nimmo trade. I was like, well, there goes Jet Williams, in my humble opinion, because he's a major leaguer in 2026. I don't know how good he'll be. I know like the version of Mets negative concerns, he's going to be the next PCA. I mean, I get it. We're going to have to wait and see. But again, there are other guys, including the most recent draft pick, Mitch Voigt. He has some different tools than Jet Williams. But Mitch Voigt is a better of a glove. He matches Jet Williams in speed, but obviously no idea yet, hit tool, power. And even Antonio Jimenez behind him in the next round in the last year's draft. And then again, there's a million guys. I love me some Boston Barrow, who I've said I think he's going to be the comeback player of the year in 2026. He's another middle infielder-ish, possibly also third baseman. So there's just depth everywhere at those two positions. So you're going to have to do something. You can't keep them all.
And a two-part question here. First with Jet. Did the rise of AJ Ewing and Jacob Reimer made this a more palatable trade and to make Jet more expendable? Because you got Ewing, Reimer, obviously Carson Benj in the outfield. I don't know. It seemed like, and even Pat posted this before the trade was taking place, as the talks were getting serious, that Jet was the kind of the full plate of what this trade was going to be like. And then they added Brandon Sproat on as, I guess, assume as a side here. Does it make it more palatable to knowing that AJ Ewing and Jacob Reimer are, I know they're different positions, but in that prospect pool?
I mean, there's so much to think about, again, including the enigma, the myth, the legend of Ronnie Mauricio. I mean, there are options. So again, you got the recent draft picks. You still have Mauricio in the organization. You've got a AJ Ewing, who I was saying it about a few weeks ago. He needs to be on a top 100 soon enough. And soon enough meant like this week. I didn't know if it would be end of the year, but now he's already getting top 100 prospect love. He could easily be a second baseman. I'm not saying he's elite. I don't know if he's winning any Gold Gloves there, but yeah, when you part with a Jet Williams, who could be an everyday core player for years with on-base percentage, speed, and some pop, he can hit some home runs. But what do you want to do? That's the thing. And also, even prospect-wise or even active roster-wise, you've already got Benj, who you can tell privately, publicly, they believe in Carson Benj a lot. Mm-hmm. So now you're already talking about belief in a Carson Benj. On the pitching side, belief in a Nolan McLean. But sometimes there's a limit. And I know as a prospect hugger, how many players are you going to have? We just lost a few of our homegrown core guys. But even them is about 3 of them over like 10 years. So how many, prospect guys that have the same ETA are going to be on the active roster? And I'm a huge Jacob Reimer fan, who could be either third base, first base, which is kind of why I was willing to trade Ryan Clifford, because of the option of maybe moving a Jacob Reimer to first base. He has sure enough of a hit tool. I believe he'll hit for enough power. He's going to hit for a higher average than Ryan Clifford as a projection. So these are some of the backup plans that the Mets have. So, and that's why I keep thinking there might even be more trades before spring, or there's definitely going to be trades in the summer. So I'm going to be losing more prospects during this year, one way or another.
Now, Jeff Cohen in the chat saying, how about Jonathan Santucci? And that goes along with the second part of my question, kind of in line with what we did with Jet, but now we're going to Sproat here. Did the rise of Jack Weniger, Will Watson, and Jonathan Santucci make Sproat expendable? Because I think I saw in one of your posts on X that you said that Jack Weniger and Will Watson are possibly a better talent than Brandon Sproat is.
And then I created my, let's not call it a Fab Four. I saw somebody said Future Four. I'm going to go with that. So I posted out my Future Four after this player development camp. The Top Guns camp just ended yesterday. And you have Jack Weniger, who, like I've been reporting on my videos, he's hitting 97, 98 already. I was told, don't be shocked if Jack Weniger in the regular season as a starting pitcher is hitting 100. So that's what we're looking at right now in Jack Weniger. Then you've got the Will Watson, who has some of the most electric stuff in the farm system. My concern has been pitch command. And then you got the lefties. You got Jonathan Santucci, who already in camp is already hitting mid-90s. His slider looks incredible. I think he's even touching 90-mile-an-hour slider as a lefty. And then you got Zach Thornton, who's allergic to throwing anything outside of his zone because he's going to throw strikes permanently. So you got those 4 pitchers. I've already been labeling Jonathan Santucci as the David Peterson replacement in 2027. I'm stuck having to keep saying that until it happens or doesn't. So, yeah, I mean, you've got 4 starting pitchers, and I'm not even talking about R.J. Gordon, who's a very talented arm, along with a Brendan Gurton. So the arms are everywhere. I can't say they're all better than Sproat because that would just be being exaggerating and for effect.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of talented starting pitchers.
How would you rank the 3 in Weniger, Watson, and Santucci in your rankings?
I mean, I'm okay with, if I want to just really have to give myself the rankings, Weniger has to be number 1 because even people in the Mets tell me he's number 1. So beyond McLean and Tom. So I think I would go Weniger, Watson, Santucci, and Thornton. But again, long term, a guy like Thornton can be higher than 4th because of his command. Because if the other guys end up doing whatever or something that may involve, I know Santucci, like a Sproat too, it's like, well, is there a fallback of being an elite kind of high leverage pen arm or long man? I get it, but you want to take advantage of somebody's velocity because maybe imagine Santucci over 1-2 innings. Maybe he's throwing 98, 99. I understand, but all 4 definitely deserve starting pitcher projections, legit. But yeah, that's kind of my 4 that I'd have to just throw out there, I guess, publicly, and I'll change my mind at any moment.
What grade are you giving this trade, this Peralta trade?
I mean, I guess maybe I'll give it a version of a B plus. Because I would love to be able to fleece another team. But I mean, you definitely, because of getting the extra guy, the extra arm who has multiple years of control, this is a thing that all teams kind of thrive in trying to do. I don't know how good Tobias will be in the future, but to take in a major league quality arm that you can have with options this year and have for 2-3 more years, it's a really good trade as far as right now. It's a positive, fair on both sides trades. A team like Milwaukee, they've been so good for so many years, they don't usually rebuild for years. So it's probably more of a retool. They could probably, I don't even know if both will actually break camp. Maybe there's a possibility. They're both on the team for the Brewers in 2026. So you're getting 2 major leaguers and we're getting an ace. It's got to be a fair trade. Maybe if you make a trade like that in July, I'd be more disappointed and sad because of the real true rental term. But to have for a whole season, it's what you do with a deeper farm system.
And there's this potential for a contract extension with Freddy Peralta more in line than if they traded for Skubal, and the fact that he's probably going to hit free agency because of Scott Boras. So, on paper, this looks like a good trade, and it doesn't have to be one-sided. It doesn't have to be one side gets a good player while the other team fails. This could work out for both teams. My guy Master Flip here is saying, I wouldn't want the Mets to acquire additional starting pitching depth. I'd rather have Tong, Scott, and Weniger as MLB ready depth pieces. And shout out to 951 of you in this room right now with me, with Ernest Dove here. I got a couple of questions from the chat here. Question for you saying, losing Jet Williams is from Green Machine. Losing Jet Williams hurts, but you have to give to get. But what type of player do you project Jet to eventually become at the major league level? Are there any comps to current players?
I mean, there's the future Hall of Fame ones that people like to say because of his height, but is he going to become Altuve? I mean, I have no idea really on that level, especially enough of a hit tool to do so, like Dustin Pedroia. But I think really the real key is, in general, at his best as a ceiling, Jet Williams can bat first or maybe ninth to utilize his on-base percentage and speed. Maybe he can hit 15, even 20-plus home runs. Defensively, it looks like last year people felt he was getting a little better, but he was still kind of he's not going to win any Gold Gloves at either of the positions, second, short, center. He's going to be a really, really solid player. But again, you'd be stuck using your height references to try to comp him to people, but more just think of him as a really solid speed demon who gets on base and just causes havoc. I mean, and he would be an everyday player, in my opinion. He's going to be.
A name that we haven't heard in a while, Shea Parking Lot mentioned, is Peralta getting any closer if Alvi falters? Because you haven't heard so much about Peralta as of late.
He's been something ever since he got into pro ball, I know he's been changing things year after year. He was changing his swing. He was changing his stance at the plate. I believe at the start of last year, he lost like 20 pounds and changed his kind of stuff again and changed his swing. So he's been altering and tweaking things every year in pro ball. And then sometimes he'll have 3 weeks of being hot, 3 weeks of being cold. He's still currently with the organization, I believe. But I know he wasn't even invited to this camp recently. They only brought a few catchers. He wasn't one of them, but they didn't really bring a lot of top-ranked catchers kind of either way. So they didn't utilize him in this camp that I'm aware of. But you know what? It is a catcher. I mean, I'm certainly not going to pretend he's Cal Rayleigh and 5 years later he's going to have a weird breakout. But, let's see. There's been some concerns even within the Mets organization, like, whoops, there's some stuff went from the draft on, and we have to continue to weigh things out. Maybe he has different changes. The catching part of things, I know he's not an elite defensive catcher. I've had mixed reviews talking to minor league pitchers over the years. Some were like, yeah, I'm trying my best. Others have said, I really like him. He helps bring the game plan to me through the coaches. So I've heard some positive stuff as well about the game planning part that he provides as a catcher with an affiliate. But he's already getting kind of passed behind. If I had a top 5 in catching prospects, he might be 4th or 5th, to be honest. And I'm going with the younger kids because of the ceilings and projections ahead of him.
Mainly Mets on YouTube, so YT saying if they traded Tong in this trade, I wouldn't like it. For 2 straight years in the minors, he was better than McLean at the same levels. He should be untouchable other than for a star player like Duran. Like I wasn't prone to wanting to trade him. If there was any other pitchers, it was going to be Brandon Sproat that I wanted to trade. I think we still got some raw talent in Jonah Tong, and he probably should not have come up towards the end of the year, and to expect him to help this team out in a pennant race was probably not the right idea.
Yeah, when I tried snooping around during this offseason, like, please don't give away my Tong. And I mean, the responses I got were, we don't plan on it. But there's always a but for this Mets organization because they're not huggers like me. So they feel he's a young star. They also feel they're going to at least listen to, would it have to be a Duran? Would it have to be Skubal as the only pitcher they were to acquire for a Tong? I mean, maybe that's what's implied. I'm just reading between the lines without being told specifically. But, yeah, my main understanding is that they have no plans on moving Jonah Tong for anyone. But there's a but. So they're always going to leave that door open. I don't think the Mets consider a lot of prospects or any prospects untouchable. It's been my understanding for a while now. They're willing to move guys, even when they're praising guys behind the scenes.
Armand is amazing asking, what do you think of the David Schoenfield offseason trade prediction for ESPN that would have Beatty to the Mariners for Matt Brash? And I'm going to try not to butcher this name. Gerangelo Sintingi?
Is he the guy that throws with both arms, righty lefty? Is he the one that's what's that term called?
Ambidextrous?
I'm trying to think. What can the Mets do right before we head to spring? The ideas that people are throwing out, like you were saying in the beginning, should they try to bring in yet another starting pitcher? But if you do, there's things to that. A couple of the available pitchers left. They're going to come with the QO issues. You're going to lose even more money, more IFA. The Mets are going to do the Saints thing back in the day with Ricky Williams and just not have a draft at some point. But more starting pitchers. But are you going to trade a David Peterson? Are they going to bring back the idea of trading Senga at the end, even though they've publicly said we're keeping him? And I even reported weeks ago that Kodai Senga has been stateside working with Met staff behind the scenes, so they're planning on having him. Now, do you want to trade a Beatty or a Vientos? But again, if you trade those guys and you're getting prospects back for a team that already has plenty of prospects, now we're actually getting into the thing. We're an all-in organization, an all-in team now. Do you want to just gather up new prospects to trade away later and flip? That's probably what you would do if you even made this trade. You figure out what to do with maybe Vientos replaces Beatty, and then you probably use one or more of those prospects in a package over the summer. It would be a flip idea, in my opinion. It wouldn't be a bad idea, but I also understand the people, whether it's negative or positive, Bo Bichette may or may not be gone in 1 year.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to go ahead and hold on to a Beatty, unless you feel Vientos can still be the third base future, which, again, by the way, Jacob Reimer is looming. And if he can be an adequate, playable third baseman, he might be better than both of them long term.
Well, Frank Pantiani says, is A.J. Ewing someone we can see in late 2026 knocking on the door in 2027, provided that there is baseball? On top of A.J. Ewing, I want to add Jacob Reimer to that conversation. Is that someone we can see soon as well?
I would think 2026 is going to be too tough. And I know maybe what a lot of fans are excited about with guys like A.J. Ewing and Carson Bench, beyond moving like 2-3 levels in one season, that's pretty amazing. But the thing is, you got to slow down at some point, and you got to get the ABs. I don't even know if A.J. Ewing's going to break camp in AAA. I would guess A.J. Ewing might break camp way back in AA. So if he breaks camp in AA, I would not see him at all sniffing the major leagues in 2026. He's going to need some more time. And I feel that way even with the pitchers, as far as the younger ones of sorts. Even though they're college arms, I can see Santucci and Will Watson spending the entire season ending it in Syracuse, because one or both of them might break camp back in AA, which is why I've been worrying about trades all offseason. The Mets have too many arms for roster spots in Binghamton and Syracuse. They just have too many. I've even had people tell me behind the scenes, we already know a lot of us are going to have to repeat the level. Now, they're disappointed. They're not going to get angry. They know it's competition. But that's even what I was told internally, let alone looking at the numbers and the pictures, and it's just the math ain't mathing.
Well, speaking of the arms real quick, and these pitchers, Christian Scott also, he's going to be coming back from Tommy John surgery. What are your thoughts on him possibly, making this team? And he's probably going to be the first in line, I would assume. He's had a little bit more experience than Jonah Tong. He's had a kind of a little bit more success than he has on the mound, and a little more control. What are your thoughts on Christian Scott possibly returning?
Everyone loves the idea of Christian Scott at this point. Every time I come up with a top pitching prospect list, people are defending for Christian Scott. I mean, I had to check myself just to make sure and confirm he's like literally by the law, not even a minor leaguer anymore. So as far as him, but if he was a true veteran major leaguer, you would give him every shot in the world to break camp. But as a guy who only had a certain amount of innings to his belt at the major league level, missing an entire year, I've been saying it since last year or for a while now. He's like the pitching version of Ronnie Mauricio. So what do you do? How quick can he come back? And even if he did, I would love the idea of Christian Scott winning a spot in the bullpen at a camp at the major league level, because that's going to be interesting either way. Even if he breaks camp and he goes to Syracuse, is he going to be in the Syracuse rotation? How many innings he's going to pitch per outing? But I do love the idea of him breaking camp. I almost technically love the idea of Brandon Sproat breaking camp in the pen. So, and now another version of a replacement for him is Christian Scott. So if he can be the 2026 version of Brazaban, Kranick, and Dedniel Nunez, sign me up.
One more comment before we get to the Luis Robert trade and the minors that were traded in there. You had mentioned also about the IFA free agency and what's been going on with the Yankees. I bookmarked it, didn't get to read it just yet, but Duran Rivera's asking, the Yanks had 2 more IFAs decommit from the Yanks in 2027 draft. Maybe the Mets could swoop in and snag them. And Tony HVAC following up and saying the Mets would need the money to do that. I think what they did this year with getting Asien is just a little bit different. They had a little bit of money, but I feel like they would have to do a lot of trades to get money back now with obviously the whole Bo Bichette signing, losing draft picks for there, as well as IFA money on that signing.
Yeah, I think now I'm going to hate confusing myself. And I know there's the IFA expert online, BK Fan, and I get a lot of my information from him, all IFA from him. And I'm trying to think some of the information from this December 2026 class. I believe the Mets kind of lost one of the top signing players of their own who had some months prior changed. So, yeah, the thing about the Asigan situation, the Wandy situation, the Mets had a little bit of money because of a kid like this who kind of switched months and months prior. This time around, They're once again losing another $1 million, I believe, from this offseason that's going to count towards the next class. So you're already down $1 million. And as BK fan pointed out, the Mets already have one of the top people once again already verbally committed for 2027. That's going to take up over $3 million. He's going to take up over half of the pool money already. So it was somewhat easier, but not this year with the trade and with, I think, a kid named Sena. I might have switched many moons ago prior. So they had the kind of money to go get another big guy if one was available, and that's what happened.
G-Money Stacks asking about, what about Nick Morabito? Do you think it's possible he'll be in the majors in the future?
I mean, depending on the inevitable situations that are going to happen, and with him being on the 40-man, I 100% would almost guarantee Nick Morabito's making his debut in 2026. But now in what role? I've been comparing him not as a player, but in role. He could be the Luis Angel Acuna of 2026 for the Mets, just playing the 3 outfield spots. That could be his thing. But again, he's on the 40-man roster, so he's going to get a call up. And even if he's not ready with the hit tool, he may get called up to be Luis Angel Acuna. Just play defense for all 3 in the outfield and be a pinch runner every game at the end of the game. That could be the role in 2026. But I also don't want to keep downplaying Nick Morabito, and I feel bad. I've been calling him a 4th outfielder for like a year now. But even 2 years ago, when staff were telling me he's getting there, he was like a work in progress. When I was talking about 2 years ago, there was Jet Williams and Nick Morabito, and they basically said, Jet Williams is a stud. Nick Morabito's, he's not there yet. He's still a projectable guy, work in progress kid. So now 2 years later, he's meeting all the expectations and exceeding them. The concern is the power, but you have to assume Nick Morabito's playing for the Mets in 2026 in at least the backup role, unless he gets hot offensively. I would like to think he's going to break camp in Syracuse. He played a lot of games in AA, so he's ready to try them at the highest level.
You got to think the outfield, obviously Soto and right, Robert Jr. in center field, and the mixture of Tyrone Taylor and Brett Beatty, or if Carson Bench comes up and takes hold of that role, that'll be there. Mainly Mets YouTube saying, how is Benj and Ewing's defense? There are no metrics on Baseball Savant or defensive runs saved yet. Are they average or above average?
Everyone debates me on some of these. Like people are super excited about AJ Ewing center field. I can't remember who said it, but somebody was telling me Ewing is like a gazelle out there running around. So he's got all the speed and range in the world for center field. Now, again, my people are telling me Carson Bench is a stud athlete who can play all 3 perfectly fine. But I know a lot of fellow fans and people who follow this stuff, they say, well, he would be better with his strong arm in a corner. So I don't want to always debate. I said he could play center field and be the future center fielder for some years, especially when the Mets have had guys like, Nimmo out there, and they had Granderson without the arm. You get a guy like Benj with a stronger arm, like double the arm of both of them. But you know what? Fine. Put him in a corner. But they're both going to be an average to above average defensively would be my understanding. There's not going to be no Schwarbers out there with these two. These are going to be legit average to slightly above, higher above guys, especially with AJ Ewing's speed and Carson Bench's arm.
Sal Capello saying, who are the next group of pitchers that will make the top 100 in the Mets organization?
I mean, it has to come from the future, not Fab Four. It's going to be one of those guys, depending on, even again, Jonathan Santucci, with a stronger third pitch of a changeup, he's probably a top 100 prospect by the end of the year. Jack Weniger, when he shows off what he's projected to have, now I'm hyping him way too much, he's probably a top 100 prospect by the end of the year. And when it comes to guys like Will Watson and Zach Thornton, Watson's all about pitch command. And I believe Zach Thornton, everyone wants everyone to be throwing mid-90s and upper 90s. So I'm excited what I'm hearing behind the scenes about Zach Thornton's velocity in this camp, how it's going to translate into the regular season. If Zach Thornton's hitting 93, 94 plus, if he's topping 95 during the year, now we're talking legit rotation arm. You could rank him whatever you feel like. He'll also be in the major leagues if that's what he does during the year.
All right, let's get into the Luis Robert trade. Duran Rivera real quick saying, Mr. Dove, love your Ernest Dove report. I am sub to it. And Joe DeMayo in the chat saying, Ernest doesn't want to debate me.
Well, it's because I'm always going to win that debate. So that would be, then what are we doing here? You know, like, come on now. The pro guy is like, but you're in college. No, I mean, you know what? Shout out Joe DeMaio. I actually met him once. I think he was big time in me because he was too cool for school. He's a nice dude that I ran into at Clover Park a couple of years ago. Shout out to him and everything he's done. I'm like so proud of that guy. And I've told him privately, I'm just super proud of you, man, for the leaps and bounds that he made in this kind of media thing. While I'm just kind of sitting here, I'm getting stepped over. Everybody else is climbing and climbing. I'm really super happy for him. I'll debate him anytime because I'm going to defend my guys, though, always.
All right, to this Luis Robert Jr. trade, the fact that the Mets gave up Luis Angel Acuna as well as Truman Pauly in this trade, did you like this deal? What you know? I already asked you your grade on Freddy Peralta. What are you giving your grade on this one?
I mean, overall, I'm giving it also like at least a B+ because of potential. Well, what if he's hurt? What if he sucks again for 3 years in a row? He's also in new age baseball, which I don't even like. He's a positive WAR player during these last 2 years of not hitting because of how good he is defensively with speed and still able to hit home runs. And what you're giving up, I mean, you're giving up a utility player. So it's kind of a Mets thing. Like, everybody sucks until they're traded, and then we didn't get enough. So I'm like, really? Nobody cared about Acuna. He can't hit. He's worthless. And this prospect, no one's heard of him. But then when they hear the trade, they're mad at it. I do like the trade. You're getting you're getting a replacement for Jose Siri, if that makes anybody feel better, because it makes me feel better. It's a good trade to have. It's a solid move. You're giving away a utility player, and you're giving away a solid arm. But again, the Mets have a lot of arms. We're talking about Truman Pauly. What can he be? Looks like a really good swing and miss guy, throws hard enough, gonna get his K rate, but his walk rate is high. And is he a future starter or a reliever? These are those guys where 2, 3, or 4 years from now, you may see them even in the major leagues in a bullpen role. So if you're giving up a utility player and a long man or a reliever for a gamble on a hot shot player that you could actually control for another year if he finds the fountain of health, not youth, you keep Robert for 2 years. It's a very valuable trade and gamble. And then worst case scenarios, you just give up more of my prospects over the summer to replace them. I mean, unless you find another outfielder, other ways.
Did Acuna's run in the Venezuelan Winter League, where he hit 4 home runs in one game, help facilitate this trade just a little bit farther? I mean, he's had a good run.
Yeah, he's doing great. Although I know the joke, I think the 4th home run was off a position player, like they do in major leagues at the end of a game. So, but my thing is, I was excited about his winner. The way people kept describing the competition to me, they were almost describing it as low as the high A level, not even AA, AAA level competition. So I understand. But my happiness and what I was really looking forward to with Acuna was the swing path that he was maybe practicing and doing that was working against those high A or maybe low AA level quality pitchers. This is what you would wanted to see from him, was to generate more fly balls. So maybe they were excited about it. Maybe, again, on the White Sox portion of it, you're just dumping a salary anyway. So if you want to they could even put Acuna in the same role he was in and be happy. Although maybe there's rumors that he'll be starting in center field, which would be pretty fascinating. He can bat, ninth and do really well for a major league team, kind of hiding him amongst everyone else without the limelight of New York.
When it comes to Truman Pauly, we've only seen a little bit of him. So you have any more insight on Truman Pauly and what we gave up on him?
Just again, we're talking about the new, and he's a Stearns guy, by the way, technically, right? Yeah. He was drafted last year. So Stearns is willing to trade his own draft picks, everybody. I know people were thinking, well, he just likes bench because he drafted him, but he drafted Truman Pauly and he's gone within, a very quick amount of time. But again, there's going to be a lot of comparable arms. I don't know who will be better. Even last summer when they gave up guys like Frank Elisalt, I would think maybe Frank Elisalt is a guy like a Truman Pauly, one of those elite, really good-looking stuff guys, and you don't know about the command. You don't know what's going to happen projection-wise in the future. So it's still a good gamble to part from a guy like that, and it's a good gamble to take him. And then we play the hindsight game like everything else in the next couple of years.
In your I have eyes. Is Carson Benj ready for the show? Is he best fit to be a center fielder? I know we have Robert Jr. there, but is he best fit to be a center fielder, or is putting him in left field the best way to start him out?
I mean, especially for a guy to make a major league debut, even if it's out of camp, which he would have to do a lot. I don't really worry about, because the fans were like, dude, he hit like under 200 in AAA, and I understand that, but he also jumped 3 levels in minor league season. So we have to put that as a factor. But that's also the factor why I thought you really shouldn't break camp. I've been wanting Benj to break camp in Syracuse this whole entire offseason, not because I don't believe in him, but because it means everybody's healthy and we got a great lineup. So if everybody's 100% healthy, leave him in Syracuse to give him some at-bats, and then he'll take over for Taylor in the outfield. But again, now for what's most beneficial to him, I could agree to put him in the limelight in New York, in Queens, in the market. I would rather see him in left than in center, definitely, to break, the MLB debut, which is going to be stressful enough and pressure enough. So it will be better to have him in that corner and then have hopefully, Luis Robert healthy and running around out there patrolling and using his range.
Ernest Dove, the New York Mets Dove Report. Make sure you're subbing on YouTube. Make sure you're following him on X at Ernest Dove. Ernest, what else you got coming up along the way? Any videos you got coming for us?
I mean, I've been pumping them out like crazy. I've been trying to make a video almost every day. Now the camp's over, I'm like slowing down for the weekend, but I want to try to see, or maybe if you guys can look out for it, I'm going to start putting out a little bit of a series of prospect profiles. I'm going to start giving it more individual. I know a lot of you guys, you've been very kind to me as subscribers, and some of you have been asking, hey, can I get even more background on some of the prospects you're saying, like back from where they were drafted, the round, some of their stats in the minor leagues. So this way, if I'll break it down, hopefully I'll do some prospect profiles. And also, I know it's long overdue. If I'm going to knock on wood and Stearns doesn't trade any more of my guys, I want to come up with a legit prospect list, but by camp. So between now and camp, look for the Doves top 20, top 30. I'm going to try to have it for you. And then again, I'll try to give you information on every single guy rather than just ranking them, and that's it.
Oh, Ernest, you're 3 out of 6 so far with the trades. You still got Nick Morbido, Will Watson, and Ryan Clifford left to go, man.
Well, there's also the summer. But, yeah, if anything happens in camp, let's see who else I'm going to lose. If they do want to sneak in another pitcher or finally grab that extra outfielder, even for a 1-year or a rental kind of guy, I'll probably still lose somebody, and I'll jinx it if I say yes or no.
Ernest, thanks so much, man. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
All right, we'll be in touch for more as we get closer to opening day and obviously camp for the minor leagues as well. So appreciate you.
Sounds good.
All righty, that was Ernest Dove. Make sure you're following him at Ernest Dove and subscribing to the New York Mets Dove Report. You could, like with Pat Ragazzo, you can find all that information on my description for this episode today. Michael King saying, I enjoy the info on the prospects. Great job, Ernest, from Shea Parking Lot. Great to have you all be a part of this chat today. We got over 1,200 people on this Sunday, on this very blizzardy, snowy Sunday. Hopefully Ernest is safe out there in Florida, because I'm pretty sure the weather's nice. But up here, it is freezing and it is snowing. Hopefully all of you guys are at home enjoying everything inside. Obviously, there's football today. There's conference championships going on. Make sure you guys are safe. If you do have to go out, please be careful. Before we wrap up the show, a little bit of news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens. The Mets have signed Craig Kimbrell, of all players. John Heyman was first on it from the New York Post. Minor league deal, gets $2.5 million. If he makes the team. That was from Will Salmon of The Athletic. In 2025, had a 2.25 ERA and 14 appearances for Houston and Atlanta, 17 strikeouts in 12 innings pitched, career 440 saves, 60 away from 500, has a career 2.58 ERA, 9 All-Star appearances, and won the World Series with the Boston Red Sox. Is Craig Kimbrell a Hall of Famer to you guys? I don't know. I kind of feel like I don't know if he gets 60 more saves, but I mean, the numbers are pretty good for him there, if considering some of the players that are in the Hall of Fame right now. And you know what? If we need to add another name to the bullpen, why not? Why not? As Prophet Bear is saying, Kimbrel still got it. Why not? Why not give it an opportunity, right? You gotta. G Money Stag saying Mets also they didn't sign Vidal Brujan, but they traded for him. They acquired him from the Minnesota Twins, sending back cash considerations. Plays second base, shortstop, and outfield. He'll be that kind of utility type guy, I guess, down in the minors. In 2025, 253 batting average, had 8 RBIs and 87 at bats between Chicago Cubs, between Baltimore, as well as Atlanta. And then the Mets also, in acquiring Vidal Brujan, designated everyone's favorite reliever, left-hand pitcher Richard Lovelady, for assignment last season. 6.30 ERA. Woo! Yeah, he had to be a goner. In 10 innings, gave up 8 runs, 4 walks, only had 9 strikeouts. Wild. Sports Nut Nick saying the Mets should sign Eugenio Suarez to be DH. And I know you mentioned earlier because I saw it in the chat. Please forgive me if I don't get to all of you guys, because with 1,200 people in the chat just flowing, it's hard for me by myself to catch up on all this. But I know you mentioned about trading Mark Vientos and signing Eugenio Suarez. Yeah, it would be nice to have that veteran presence and that veteran bat at DH. But I think because the profile is similar, I'm not saying he's better. I'm not saying Mark Vientos is better than Eugenio Suarez. But because the profile is similar, where both are most likely going to be DH, both strike out a ton. Obviously, he has a little bit more power. Has a lot more power. But I think that they're going to save their money and keep Mark Vientos rather than sign Eugenio Suarez. But, I mean, he'd be a nice addition to the offense. I just don't see it happening. I don't see them doing it that way. Music Man saying the bullpen is starting to look very good. I agree. And then the addition of Tobias Myers to the bullpen, whether he's in long relief or, just coming out for an inning or two or a batter or two, I think that's going to be huge. And then you have to figure if the Mets don't go with a 6-man rotation, someone's going to be heading to the bullpen, right? Even earnest of the fact mentioning Christian Scott could be one of those guys. So, that's going to wrap it up for the Subway to Shea podcast today. I really appreciate every single one of you for tuning into the show. If I didn't get to your comment, I truly apologize. I had Pat Ragazzo on earlier, kind of had him on in a little bit of a time crunch, so I had to get as many questions out to him as possible. And then I got to take some of your comments and questions with Ernest Dove there. Had to get a little deeper dive into these 2 trades in regards to Freddy Peralta and Luis Robert Jr. Obviously, we got to break some of that news on air, but we didn't get in depth with these moves and how it affects the farm system, which is huge, right? Because the Mets, according to ESPN, were the number 1 farm system in baseball, obviously top 5. And now they kind of moved back a little bit because of the trade of Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams. Not so much, Luis Acuna, but obviously he's a part of that as well and what he can provide to Chicago. He's going to get more playing time. It's going to work out there for him. So, we needed to know where the Mets stand, who now takes over those spots. It looks like the pitching, according to Ernest Dove, is in good hands with guys like Jack Weniger, Will Watson, Jeff Cohen fan favorite Jonathan Santucci, and there's more to come. And then you're talking about guys like AJ Ewing, my guy Ibby's favorite Jacob Reimer, as well. You could follow them on Till Mets Do His Part, Ibby and John on YouTube. So there's just a lot that's going on, not only at the major league level. We know the Mets are trying to build this team and make them a playoff team. Their rotation is starting to get in line. They're making additions to the bullpen. The lineup looks to be set right now. I don't know if they make any major additions, and neither Pat Ragazzo doesn't think they are. And if they do, it's most likely going to be more pitching and nothing to the hitting. So that says a lot. The hope that Carson Benj is the guy. I don't know if he breaks camp. Ernest says he probably shouldn't break camp and should go in AAA to start. But the fact that Carson Benj has been talked about throughout this whole entire offseason, since the beginning, when they were at the winter meetings. And I actually, it may have been during the last game of the season at that final press conference for David Stearns, where he started talking about Carson Benj being an important part of this team. we didn't hear about Jet Williams at all. So maybe, Jet Williams was made that more expendable. I always thought that because all of this talk about Carson Bench, how, he was going to get more emphasis and is going to get an opportunity to break. I thought that maybe that was kind of a little bit of trade bait, but the real trade was with Jet Williams. And he was the, I guess, main course of that trade, along with adding Brandon Sproat, as we saw Pat Ragazzo in his tweet before the trade happened. He was the one that was mentioned the most, Jet Williams. So we'll see how everything comes out. We have a few weeks until spring training. I have to get my usual year show in with Mets radio play-by-play broadcaster Keith Radd. I got to get him on the show before spring training breaks. And then we're going to also be talking about the World Baseball Classic here. So for Anthony Rivera, for the Subway to Shea podcast, which you can follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me personally at Ant Rivera 86. Make sure you are, if you prefer to listen to the show, you're doing that on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's the best place to find it. But if you want to be a part of the chat, you want to be a part of the conversation, you are doing that right here on YouTube, and you can help out the show with super stickers, super thanks, as well as there's just so many ways. Being a part of this chat, also a great way to help out this show. Gets the algorithm going and gets more Mets fans and more baseball fans onto the show if you really enjoy it. So I really appreciate the over 1,200 of you that joined in this morning. For Anthony Rivera, this has been the Subway to Shea podcast. And always remember, let's go Mets.